Welcome to the What a Play podcast. We are your hosts, Jacob and Lucas. Lucas's camera's just not working today, so you're just going to hear audio from Lucas's side. But Lucas, how is your day going?
Uh, Besides the camera, it's going pretty good.
So, I think week 2 is one of those weeks of you don't know what's going to happen. It's kind of like week 1. It's a mixed mash of bag. And I know I'm not feeling well, so I'm trying to push through this as much as I can. So for week 2, we had the Raiders beating the Ravens. No one expected that to happen. We both picked the Ravens to win, and then all of a sudden here come the Raiders and Gardner Minshew, and they're playing a horrible first half, same as the Ravens. And at the end of the game, somehow the Raiders win. I'm like, I don't know what I'm expecting from this Ravens team at this point. We just lost Lucas for a second. Hang on.
I think I'm back. What was the question? I apologize.
It's okay. So we were talking about how bad the Ravens were against the Raiders in the second half.
Yeah. I don't know. I, I don't know. I mean, it's tough because they've been in two close games. It really could have fallen either way. They're 0-2. They're probably the best 0-2 team that's out there. I would. I'm not. It's still very early in the season. I still believe the Ravens will be in the playoffs. I still believe the Ravens have a good chance at being in the AFC Championship. So if I were a Ravens fan, I wouldn't be so worried. What I would be worried about is their defense. Their defense hasn't been all that great, especially their secondary, to be particular. I feel like they've given up. I'm pretty sure they've given up a lot of passing yards thus far throughout the season. So that would probably be something they would need to look into fixing. Um, but I don't think Ravens fans should worry. I think the Ravens will be at the end of the season where we expected them to.
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, you get week 1, week 2s, and even week 3s. You're looking at a team. You're like, I don't know what this team is at this moment. And then you look at that team again in like week 6, week 7. You're like, oh, they're fine. They'll be okay. And then you get to like week 10. They're like, oh, they're leading their division now. Like, what happened? That's this. And you only need a get right game. What is that get right game for the Ravens? Well, they play the Cowboys. My Cowboys that just got smoked by the Saints team. That
Yep.
they kicked them in the teeth so fast. It was like they didn't know what they were doing half the time.
So let's just talk about that. What do you think happened in that? Why do you think that game went so wrong for the Cowboys?
Um, so many different things that happened. Effort was really bad. Like there was a play where Kamara scores the screen pass, and Tank Lawrence is the one that is closest to him. He's 280 pounds. Why is he the closest guy? You got guys who are corners that should outrun him. Why is Tank Lawrence's effort better than everybody else? And Micah Parsons talked about that. He's like, the effort was bad. There's people who aren't putting maximum effort. And we're putting guys, like one of our guys who had 11 tackles week 1, barely played in week 2 for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
The offense is without, like, Dak, besides Dak making, like, you take out the 2 interceptions, which one the receiver fell down in. It's not his fault. The receiver fell down. The second one, yes, was his fault, but he's trying to push the ball down the field. They can't run the ball again, 4th straight year. And the offensive line is just getting annihilated to the point that every time Dak looks up, there's pressure. It's like, it's too much at times. They don't push the ball down the field at all.
Yeah. How much of it in week two? Was it the Cowboys just uninspired play, like you were saying, or was it just the Saints were just playing that well?
I think I think it's a mixture of both, to be honest. The Saints are a very high scoring team and they have a lot of speed. But every time Dallas plays a team like that, or a pretty good team, their effort gets questioned because they just don't look like they put maximum effort. And that all starts to, they get punched first and they start wobbling and they don't know what to do.
Yeah, I would say that's definitely been a common trend for the Cowboys in the last, I don't know, probably in the Dak Prescott era, I would say. Not that
Yeah,
first year, obviously, where they really should have won that playoff game. It just came down to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers just being that damn good. But
yeah,
um, like besides that year, taking that year out, I feel like it's just been such a common trend. Like it's always just when they play a really an evenly matched team to even just a team that's slightly better than them, it's never even close. It's
right.
always it's and it's never just like they played well, the other team played better. It's like the Cowboys could have won, but they just played below average all game
Right.
long.
But that's the thing that's frustrating. You look at Dak's numbers in like the first half, he was actually having a really good game. He was like 13 of 17. He was doing good things. And it's not like they can't move the ball. They can. But they're having such issues with such a young offensive line at tackle, at center. They can't, they're trying to protect the offensive line so they're not going down the field. But when they do, they have success. It's just they don't do it. And then they don't look prepared at times to do anything on defense. It's like the defense, like you look at the offense, it's 7-3, and you're like, okay, we moved the ball. We were able to move the ball consistently. We looked good. And then in the second drive, the Saints go score again, and the offense looks back up and they say, oh my gosh, it's 14-3. What just happened? We had to go back on the field again because our defense could not stop it.
Yeah,
And that's pretty much, you can't teach effort. That's the problem.
right. What do you think about Mike Zimmer? Didn't I didn't watch the Cowboys game, so was he just not able to adjust, or what was the issue with the defense?
I think what happened was they thought they could get the Saints to third downs. But this thing that keeps going into a problem, and I don't really want to lean too much into this because I did on the NFL World YouTube channel on Monday, of they can't stop the outside run to the left. They can't do it. That's what the Saints did all day long. But when they wanted big yards, they ran the ball to the outside and to the left. That's what they did. And the Cowboys couldn't stop it. Whatever they did, slants, whatever, they couldn't stop it. And when they didn't do it, like you look at Derek Carr's stats, he didn't have like a tremendous game in terms of completions, but it was just they ran the play actions because they could run the football, and Dallas couldn't. And
Yep.
it's that problem. They can't run it. So it makes it so much harder on Dak all the time. And this offense. Because like I said, the offense can move the ball. They just can't run the ball when they need to.
Right. And just to put a bow on things, I mean, week two probably not the best week for a Cowboys fan, but at least the Eagles lost in Monday Night Football
That's what
against the
I was thinking.
Falcons.
You look at it's not just the Eagles lost, Detroit lost, San Francisco lost. And I'm like, okay, all the teams that we expected to be really good lost. So maybe it was just one of those weeks.
Yeah, and it's very early in the season. I don't expect the Saints to keep up the
That's what I believe. And the way I looked at it was also Saints are 2-0, but Tampa's 2-0. They're both in the same division. So it's not the worst thing for you.
no, and I believe the Bucks are, if you want to use the pretenders contenders uh, thinking. I believe the Bucks are real. I don't think the Saints are. I think the Saints are going to fizzle out as the season progresses. I don't think they're built for the playoffs. I think it might come down to coaching too. You got Todd Bowles versus you know
Dennis
uh,
Allen, yeah.
Dennis Allen. Yeah, I was trying to think of his name. Um, I think it comes down to coaching a lot of the times, and I just think the Bucks are better built too. They have a quarterback who has been in the playoffs before, who they've done well. They've won a playoff game with him, so I think they're built to last. Versus, I think the Saints. I don't think they will.
Right. I was gonna actually save this game for a little bit later, but let's do it now actually. But the Buccaneers beat the Lions 20-16 in a game that it was not a highest scoring game. The game was 20-16, and the Lions dominated the stat board. But the Buccaneers, they do enough, and that's always a very important thing. Do enough and make things happen. That's what they do. Week 1 it was Mike Evans. This week it's Chris Godwin. That's what they are, and that's okay. That
Yeah,
is okay. That's not a horrible thing. I just that's when you want to beat good teams in September. That's when you want to beat them. Lucas, your favorite team is the Patriots. When do you want to beat the Patriots? You want to beat them all year long, of course. But when you guys were dominating, when did you know you could beat the Patriots?
yeah, definitely September because a lot of the times we'd go 2-2 to start the season.
Exactly. That's what you do. Go in September. Go in September. Win in September. If you can win in September, that's good. Because you beat a good team, even though they might only be good in December. You beat them in September. That's important. The Chiefs are looking at it the same way. We beat Baltimore in September. We didn't beat them in November, but we beat them in September. That's good enough.
And that was the same
That's
thing
what
with
you
the
want.
Chiefs last year. The Chiefs last year, I think the Broncos beat them. There were a bunch of teams. The Lions beat them. There were a lot of teams that beat them last year, and the Lions were real, and obviously the Broncos weren't. But I mean, it's just earlier in the season, you want to beat a team before they get hot. It's especially and it comes down to who really has played in the preseason. Some players don't play in the preseason, and they're rusty to start out the season. Um, versus players that got reps throughout the preseason.
Exactly.
So it's just one of those things where you want to punch them in the mouth, and you want to punch them in the mouth early.
Exactly. And when you play a team like Tampa, if you can beat Detroit in September, great, perfect. That's what you want. That's important. And you look at the Lions. Don't take too much stock into this. This is a you lost this game, okay, sure, but you played. And I thought about this last week. You played two teams you played in the playoffs a year ago. You played the Rams week 1. That was a wild card game. You played the Buccaneers week 2. That was a divisional game. Don't take too much stock in you lost to Tampa. Now take the stock in can we beat Tampa in January, which you've proven you
Yeah,
can. So take that as a positive.
yeah, exactly.
All right, let's move into um the Seahawks squeaking by Lucas's New England Patriots. And until last night, I would have said that New England had a competent team, like a team that was like, they're not probably going to win a lot of games, but they're going to be close in games. And that's what I saw in Seattle. I was like, okay, this team against Seattle, they are competent. They look decent, and they held Seattle to 23 points. Okay, that's good enough for me. I was kind of surprised they scored 20, but I'll leave it to Lucas to explain, and I'm going to go clean my nose because I've been sick for the last couple days. So, Lucas, why don't you take over for a bit?
Yeah, sure. Um, yeah, just go strictly talking about week 2. the game against Seattle. The Patriots putting up 20 points, like Jacob said, that's surprising. I think, especially I didn't expect the Patriots to have much wins this year. And facing the Bengals week one when we actually beat them, I was shocked. I still trust in my prediction of 4 to 5 wins throughout the year, and I think last night's game kind of proved that's going to be most likely our distant future. Talking about week two, we had a lot of big plays. We had a lot of big plays from our running backs and from Hunter Henry, really. I won't even say tight ends. I don't know if Austin Hooper even had any receptions. If he did, I don't believe it was anything ridiculous. But anyway, basically in the first half, we could move the ball down the field because Jacoby Brissett was ignoring our receivers and strictly throwing the ball to Hunter Henry, run the ball with Ramondre, run the ball with Antonio Gibson, throw the ball to Hunter Henry. And it worked. And then Seattle adjusted. So then they would they'd cover up Henry completely to a point where we had no one because Brissett can't throw to our receivers because they're too far down the field. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's they're too far down the field, the routes are too complicated, he's going to make a hard throw. It's not even completely on Jacoby Brissett because our O-line cannot defend. Our O-line is the worst in the league. I don't care anyone else's team that has a bad O-line. I bet you ours tops yours. Especially looking at last night's game, case in point, our O-line's the worst in the league. It's awful. And on top of the already thin numbers that we do have, we have injuries on the O-line. So on top of it being god-awful, even if we were healthy, we're injured. We cannot block anyone. We can't block a stiff breeze. So basically, I remember Gibson had a play week two where it was a broken play. The play should have been stopped behind the line of scrimmage, and instead he runs 40 yards down the field, broken tackles, missed tackles from Seattle's defense. We played well. We should have won that game. I guarantee you if Drake May was our quarterback, and this is where it gets tough, because how much do you blame the O-line? How much do you blame Jacoby Brissett? I don't care how bad the O-line is. 32 passing yards in the second half. It's not a winning formula. It's not a winning recipe at all. We had the ball. It was 20-20 with a minute 40 and a timeout on our 20, 15-yard line, something like that. We ran the ball twice and drained the clock and went to overtime. Maybe we threw the ball once for like 4 yards. Why do you think we did that? Because we don't trust our quarterback. We do not trust Jacoby Brissett to bring us down the field, to put us into field goal range. A minute 40 and a timeout. Great, and this is great teams, but I mean they don't need even more than 13 seconds. We're a terrible team, sure, but we had plenty of time. But we can't get the ball down the field if we don't slowly run the ball down the field, unless somehow our running back finds a gap through our O-line and can run it all the way down the field. There's no way. So when you put us in a time crunch situation where we just need a couple big shots, we need Jacoby to make some throws to Jalen Polk, to Demario Douglas, to whoever. It won't happen. The only way we're going to get down the field is if we slowly run the ball and we get downfield. And we can't do that with a minute 30. So that's why we drain the clock. Go to overtime. We got the ball first. I was excited. Because that means that we weren't going to have time constraints. We could easily get the ball down the field. Well, we didn't do that. There was some PI bullshit at the end of the game. It didn't matter. Seattle was the better team. And I mean, just going off of last night, just really briefly, just touching on the Patriots-Jets game, because I don't want to talk about that too much. We can't block. Jacoby Brissett's not the guy. So just with those two factors, we are not going to win many games, which is fine as a Patriots fan. We can get a top 5 pick again, and we have Drake May hopefully healthy by next season. Just in case he somehow has to. I mean, he went in a little bit last night, so if he goes in later in the season, if Jacoby gets hurt, which I'd be surprised if he wouldn't behind that O-line. Hopefully next year, Drake is healthy. He's ready to go. We have another top 5 pick. We can secure the O-line with that pick or within free agency, whatever we need to do. But this is just going to be the reality for Patriots fans for the remainder of 2024 into 2025.
I think that was very well said and very well articulated. I did watch that game last night, and we will talk about it a little bit later. But you're right, the offensive line can't block. Is part of it Jacoby Brissett's fault? Yes, because where's like there's times he looks like he's when there is something open, he's hesitating a little bit. But when he does throw the ball down the field, it's like, who is he supposed to throw it to? Like, there's no one there. No one's getting open enough for him to get the ball to. And then the O line's really bad. He's getting beat up. And you said, like, with, like, whether it was Stevenson or Gibson, where the play broke down and yet somehow because of missed tackles, he makes it 40 yards. You just explained the nicest way of what happened to when there was a play, and I don't want to really touch upon this too much in the Cowboy game, but where Dak's getting sacked and he just pitches it to Zeke, and Zeke runs 15 yards. Zeke's a pass blocker on this play. He just pitches. He's like, "You do it. I can't. There's like 3 people around me. There's no ways for me to go. So here, you take it." And it ends up going like 15 yards on a first down only because Dak was heady enough to make that play. So I can see your frustration because it just happened to us, and I'm sure it's happened to you guys for like the last 2 years where you're like, I don't know what to do. Plays are breaking down, and the running back has to make a great play. That's not sustainable as much as you want it to be. But what do you want your quarterback to do when he's like trying to make something work and it doesn't work? I don't believe Brissett is the guy. I don't think he is the guy. You're hoping that Drake May is the guy. But at some point, you gotta go tell this offense. You gotta go say, hey, guys, we need receivers. We need offensive linemen. We need throw money at them. Do whatever you gotta do. Get people here. Trade for whatever you gotta do. If I'm New England, you look at free agency, you look at offensive line, you say, help him. Help him. Look at I don't want to really put I know this is kind of like twisting a knife in the back a little bit, but look at what the Jets did last year. Their offensive line was putrid. They couldn't do anything. And so, what did they do in the offseason? They trade for Morgan Moses, who got injured last night. They signed Tyron Smith. They go bring in another left guard. They said, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. There's a plan in place. Right now for New England, there is no plan in place. And I don't think there has been a plan in place since Scarnecchia left in terms of the offensive line. There's not an understanding of what they're supposed to do.
No, and
And
I
that's a
don't have.
problem.
I was just going to say I don't have any faith in our GM Elliot Wolf to make those decisions. He has made some questionable decisions in the past and has chose to sit on his hands when we could have made a move. Yeah, we were willing to pay Brandon Ayuk big time money, but we're not willing to sign Judon, which I mean that's a bad example because it made sense and whatever. But I mean you take a team player and a locker room guy like Judon and just don't pay him. Which I'm not saying I disagree with that decision in particular. I'm just saying he sat on his hands before, let some homegrown guys go that were very good, and let's just let them walk. So I'd be lying if I told you that I have faith that we will have this O-line issue fixed by next year. I would not be shocked if it was barely even addressed.
All right, let's move on to the Vikings beating the 49ers 23 to 6 23 to 16, excuse me. 17. 23-17. This is one of those games. I think this is like the 49ers have struggled against Minnesota, but also the last 2 times they've faced Minnesota, they've not had McCaffrey, or Debo again got hurt in this game. He's going to miss time. Now with a calf strain, he's going to miss several weeks. There is difficulties in San Francisco right now. with McCaffrey at least missing 3 more games after being placed on IR. And props to Minnesota. I mean, Sam Darnold looks like he found, I wouldn't say the fountain of youth. Can we say the fountain of growth or something like that? Because,
I wouldn't say the
I
fountain
mean,
of youth because he never really. I mean, unless you're talking about college days, because it was not when he got
I
drafted by the
guess,
Jets. He wasn't.
can we say fountain of non-stupidity? Can
Yeah,
we say
just
that? I
common
guess
sense
that's the best we
football.
can do. Because, I mean, think about this guy. He goes to the Jets, they have Adam Gase. What's that going to do? I mean, we saw that. He goes to Carolina, they have Matt Rule. We saw that. That didn't look good. Then he goes to San Francisco for you to bench behind Kyle Shanahan and his crew, and Brock Purdy's the quarterback. Okay, let's go. Now he's in Minnesota. He's like, okay, I'm going to be the backup to JJ McCarthy. JJ gets hurt. Sam, you're up. Let's go. Oh my god. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, who's going to throw the ball to Justin Jefferson? I mean, no one's stopping Sam Darnold from doing it. Let him go. Let him throw the ball. Justin had over 100 yards, and it was mostly in the first half. I
Yeah,
mean,
and it's very great. I mean, like you said, from going from Adam Gase to Matt Rule to Kyle Shanahan and to Kevin O'Connell, that's a pretty good. That's a pretty that's a 180. You know, from the probably one of the worst some of the worst coaches in the league in recent years to some of the best. Kevin O'Connell's a great head coach. Obviously, Kyle Shanahan, and those are good people to learn from and to get behind. And I would say the biggest loser out of the last 2 weeks in the NFL hasn't been an NFL team; it's been JJ McCarthy, because I don't believe he's going to have a starting job waiting for him next year. I'm worried this is kind of like a Trey Lance situation. I don't want to say that because I think JJ McCarthy is a better quarterback than Trey Lance, and I think there were a lot of question marks about Trey Lance that people ignored around draft season when it was his time to go. Um, yeah, I I don't know enough about JJ McCarthy, but what I do know is that there's a quarterback playing in the QB1 spot on his team that's playing so well that it's. I mean, sure there'll be a quarterback battle, but I don't think they're gonna deviate away from Darnold come next year if he keeps this play up.
the way I looked at it was like when Sam Darnold, we hear this a lot because this was talked about like Jason Garrett for many years. We talked about this, and I used to call him Coach Clap because that's all he would do. And Sam, it's like Sam somehow failed but went upwards. That's kind of how he operated. But then I described it. He's like, no, he died and went to football heaven because he went to college. And I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. And now he's in Minnesota. He's got Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson, a decent ground game with Ty Chandler,
Jordan Addison.
Jordan Addison. I mean, he's kind of been banged up with this ankle issue, but he's going and he's finding it. This defense looks pretty good under Brian Flores. And hey, make it work. That's all you can do. Make this work. And then you get into the 49ers. Like, there's concern there, of course. I don't think the offense is an issue. I think there's so many different coordinators that they've had. And this is the same thing goes for Philadelphia too. So many different coordinators. So many different people who call the defensive plays. Like, yes, you may have the same plays that they call because San Francisco is like, oh, we tape our plays. So when a new coordinator comes in, they're not completely lost. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's great, but that doesn't say that's exactly what they're gonna call every single moment of the game. Like, a team may call a 3rd and 6 differently in the first quarter than in the fourth quarter. That's not saying that one coach is gonna call that one way and then the same way when another coach comes in. It's not gonna happen. So there does seem to be problems from that side of the 49ers. I think that should just be mentioned a little bit.
Yeah, not too much cause for concern for 49ers fans. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah,
It,
you'll be
it's
fine. It's just when does Debo come back? When does Christian McCaffrey come back? And let's see
yep.
what happens from that perspective.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
would say yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say staying healthy is paramount for them.
Absolutely. Speaking about staying healthy, the Rams are not. They got smoked by the Cardinals. 41-10. Marvin Harrison Jr., 2 touchdowns, becoming the first receiver since his dad to have 2 touchdowns and a half.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, great day from him, especially polar opposite from week one, where he really didn't make any noise. It wasn't even necessarily the first half. It was the first half, but even just the first quarter. The first
Absolutely.
quarter, he went off, and a lot of that had to do with who was behind center. Kyler Murray had a great game all year round, and really, I was like, man, like all game they're blowing out the Rams. I was like, they have Kyler Murray, they have Marvin Harrison, they have James Conner. Like they're stacked. They really are. And in a division where the Rams are 0-2, of course there's it's still a tough division, but like they absolutely can make the playoffs. I mean, they lost to the Bills, but I mean, man, was it close? And the Bills are going to be right there at the top come playoff season. So the Cardinals might surprise some
Did,
people this year.
did anyone have on their bingo card Seattle would be first in that division, and then everyone else would be tied at 1-1 after 2 weeks? I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card.
Yeah, I don't believe so. Are the Rams? The Rams are 0-2, correct?
Yes. So I guess technically they're the fourth in the division. I misspoke.
Yeah.
And now that you have Cooper Cup's injured, Puka's been out with it. He's on IR. The offensive line is injured to hell. There is problems. They can't move the football because the offensive line is so bad. Matthew Stafford's getting beaten up like he's back in Detroit. He's having flashbacks of what was happening in Detroit in like 2012. It's bad.
Yeah, tough time to be a Rams fan, especially when you came into the season. At least for me, I kind of had high expectations for them. So,
Absolutely.
not a good start.
But like if you look at Kyle Murray for that, he had a he was a he had a perfect quarterback rating. He became the first, not the first, but there's only been like I think they said only like 10 quarterbacks or maybe even less than that that have a perfect quarterback rating and rush for over 50 yards. And Kyle is now one of those people.
Hmm.
I mean, even when it went bad, like, they had James Conner fumbles, and it somehow comes back, falls to Trey McBride, the tight end of the Arizona Cardinals, recovers it in the end zone for a touchdown.
Yeah,
You
but
can't make this stuff up sometimes.
you cannot, and when you're playing that well, things just seem to go your way, like, just like that
Absolutely.
fumble recovery in the end zone.
Well, and then we get into this last game that happened. The Chiefs squeaking by the Bengals. And first of all, I want to say this. This happened only after the game. I don't understand why the media does this because it drives me nuts. When the media was like, we can't believe we got great ratings between the Chiefs and the Bengals. What game show are you watching? It's the Joe Burrow who's beaten Patrick Mahomes more than once against Patrick Mahomes. Who thought, oh, this would not be a competitive game, let's not watch?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know about that. Um, Going into the game, this was a listen. This was a good game for the Bengals. I know they're
Absolutely.
0-2. They're 0-2 to start, and I mean week one. I don't know what happened, but they, I wouldn't say this is falls into the other early game categories to start their season. like years past, like they could have won this game, and they really probably should have won this game if their cornerback doesn't tackle the receiver before the ball gets thrown to him. It really, what was it, like 4th and 16, and the ball like flew in the air like 30, 40 yards. Like, come on, just
Here's my
play.
here's my
Yeah, go ahead.
here's my thing. Okay, first of all, let's get on the same page here. The Chiefs benched their young left tackle. Okay, because he was committing too many holding penalties. Okay, I don't know why media has such a hard time saying his name. It's not hard. It's either Kingsley Suamatea or Kingsley Suamatea. It's not hard. Stop sounding it out like you don't know what you're talking about. It's not hard. We heard it for 9 months in a row. And so the second part of this is I understand the rule, it's pass interference. I get it. I get the rule. Having said that, the receiver turns around, just stops. What's the defender supposed to do? It's one of those rules of look, and you heard me talk about this before, Lucas. When a receiver goes back for a ball and the defender is trying to get out of the way, but the receiver jumps into him, and they still call defensive pass interference. It's the most fluky rule ever. It just moves around all the time.
Right. I feel like the play that happened on Sunday was necessarily that.
No.
It definitely it's one of those, like, it is what the rule is, and yeah, how do you call it in that situation type play? And Mahomes has been quoted saying that before when it didn't go his way. Um, but no,
Absolutely.
it is pass interference, and it was the right call. And I mean,
Right.
you got to play discipline. I understand it's not easy, but the game of football isn't easy, and you're not paid millions of dollars because it's easy. So you got to be able to make those plays, and you got to know the situation. And I mean, you got to play. It's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easy or I could do it, but like when you're in that position and you're being paid to make those plays, you got to make those plays, and you can't make those mistakes. Um,
Absolutely.
it's a tough situation, but the rule is the rule, and there's been and I saw a lot of outrage on social media, and I myself was annoyed. Like, that's how the game's gonna end. Like, come on. But there's been worse scenarios where
Or
it
more
didn't make as
egregious
much
things for sure.
sense. Yeah, exactly. So this one definitely wasn't even up there. So this one I can live with. It's not a big deal. The Bengals completely, the Chiefs didn't make him tackle him. He decided to do it. So um,
Right.
it's annoying, but it's like you said, it's not the most egregious thing that has happened. Against the Chiefs, where it's more like a ticky tacky call, and they call it so the Chiefs win. So it was. I wouldn't say it's necessarily that. You just got to play better football.
Yeah. I think these are kind of like you know how Peyton Manning and Tom Brady always had those classic games? Like they
Yeah,
weren't necessarily always high scoring games, like it was always one sided or the other. But it was like this is that, basically. This is their version of that. Uh of star quarterback versus star quarterback, and let's see what happens. And
I agree.
that's what this is.
Yeah, and I disagree because that's actually not the consensus. A lot of people say that it's not a rivalry and that Mahomes owns Burrow, and I don't really agree with that. I think every time they play, it's close for the most part, and it's always a good game. So I mean, it absolutely is a rivalry in my opinion.
Absolutely. Now let's get into the news. Let's do this rather quickly because we spent a lot of time on just the game part. Jordan Love returned to practice from his after suffering his MCL. Matt LaFleur has said that he has a chance to play. I wouldn't blame him this week. Wait another week
Yeah,
so he doesn't re-injure it. I think.
yeah,
I think that's
week
pretty
minimum.
easy to.
Yep.
Yeah. Um. Here's the thing, and this got a lot of outrage, and I understand why. I really do. The Panthers benching Bryce Young, and I understand Bryce Young has not been good. I get it. I also look at him like, who's he throwing the ball to? Adam Thielen and what? This
Yeah,
like you said earlier, the Patriots offensive line was really bad. this might be about the same. It's really bad.
Yeah, and when you're a organization and you draft a player, number one overall, and you are already in a terrible situation. That's how you got that pick. And regardless of you traded for it or whatever, the Panthers were still garbage. Um, to not even give him a chance and just kind of throw him in the fire and be like, oh, this guy is not Andrew Luck. He's not Peyton Manning. He's not, and even like you got to Peyton Manning's rookie season, he was awful. You got to
Yes,
give
one
your players
exception.
a chance. Exactly. You
Yes,
you ha- you, ha- you have to give your players a chance, and when you don't even try to help them, and then now you're going to blame him because someone's got to be blamed here. And the Panthers' new head coach is like, whoa, I see where this is going. We're starting Andy Dalton. I mean, come on, like way to break a man's confidence. Take it from a guy who's Mac Jones was his quarterback for a few years, and Mac Jones wasn't that bad to start, and we slowly broke that kid down to a point where he couldn't even make a simple read. He was so scared. It was getting to the point of Zach Wilson and seeing ghosts. So, and that's why he's a backup quarterback. And I don't
absolutely.
believe he'll be a backup quarterback all season. I wouldn't be surprised if he would get traded to a quarterback needy team if someone else gets hurt. If Miami decides not to trade for him, um, I think Mac will get another shot. It's just take. I know I've been a fan of an organization that has done that to a player. So when you draft a quarterback, you got to help him out. You can't just throw him into the fire. And that's why I appreciate what we're doing with Drake May, and the Panthers should take notes from kind of what the Patriots are doing with Drake May and give him a fucking chance. Don't throw him into the fire and then blame him when he can't bring the Panthers to relevancy.
The way I look at this team is they can't run the ball. Adam Thielen's the only guy who gets open. And like this is how I know this was really bad. I don't know if this was week 1 or week 2. I think this might have been week 2. There's a play Adam Thielen gets open and Bryce just doesn't see him. And I don't know if Bryce just got hit right away or what. But what happened was Adam Thielen's not an emotional guy. There's very few clips that you can find him where he sheds his emotion. He was so outraged because he's frustrated. He's seen this for a year of this young guy is just getting his tail. He's getting crushed. And everyone's like saying, well, he's not seeing the field correctly. How is he supposed to see the field correctly if he has no chance to see the field? And everyone's like, well, he's worried about the rush. I would be too. The offensive line can't stop a stiff breeze over here. They can't do anything. He's waiting there, looking for guys, and then as soon as he puts his head up, he's getting guys right in his face. What do you want him to do?
Yeah, he's
Right?
paid millions of dollars to basically be a punching bag behind that O line, and
Absolutely.
I hope it's the Panthers realize when Andy Dalton comes in that maybe it's not the quarterback, maybe it is the O line. Maybe people just aren't saying that. I don't understand. If you're gonna give up DJ Moore and all kinds of picks to get this guy on your team and just do nothing to help him, where is the thought process? Like it's just not it's not about winning football games at that point.
It's like one of those situations. It's kind of like what Houston was a couple years ago, you know, where everything's bad. So let's just be bad for a couple years, and then let's go get our star guys. That's what they're doing, and it's frustrating because you see, and like a lot of players came to the defense. LeBron James came to the defense. He's like, "Hey, it's not your fault, young fella. It's not you. There's nothing you can do." A lot of players are outraged. They're like, "What is he supposed to do? He's because the only thing you do in this situation is destroy this young man's confidence. That's it. That young guy comes in with confidence that he can make this work, and he gets annihilated because he's got 3 different play callers the last 2 years, 2 different head coaches the last 2 years, and every time he looks up, he's getting hit. What do you want him
Yeah.
to do?
So I hope that honestly somehow Bryce Young can get out of Carolina and maybe he can kind of fix his career. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to go back to him hopefully, but yeah, I hope he gets a fair shot.
All I'm saying, man, is look at Baker and look at Sam. They were in Carolina. They were not very good. They left Carolina. Now look how they are.
Yeah.
They're tearing it up. Something in Carolina, man. Let's go with this next thing. This is kind of a shocker. I saw this on probably Tuesday, Wednesday, but I didn't fully believe it, and I decided I'm going to put it down because this is how people take football so seriously, and I get it. But this is overkill. Dan Campbell was forced to sell his home in Detroit because after the loss to Tampa, people were actually coming to his house. They found where he lived to the point he had to sell his house.
Yeah,
That's all I can say.
that's obviously. I mean, I love football as much as the next guy, but at the end of the day, it is just a game, and you gotta you can't be. It's not even like. I mean, obviously, it's never warranted, but it's not even like the Lions are a bad team and Dan Campbell's a bad coach. I mean, you're looking at a great team and a great coach, so I don't understand. You lost the game, so what? Obviously, Detroit fans aren't used to winning football games because you're not going to win every fucking game. I mean, you're not the league isn't built for you to go
Absolutely.
16, 17, 18 and 0.
So you have to also
with
look
the
at life after or aside of football, which is how we lean into this next one with Tua. I don't know if you watched the Thursday night game last week, Lucas, with between the Dolphins and the Bills, but Tua Tagovailoa suffered another concussion and was placed on IR and is expecting to see over the past this week and maybe even the next couple weeks, he's going to see independent neurologists about what, because a lot of places say he might retire. According to NFL Network, this is where I got my news. They said he's not planning to retire. This is not the idea. He wants to play, but he's going to talk to independent neurologists to see what kind of damage is being done. But I tell you that Tua, and I said this on NFL World, I've said this last week, I'm saying it again, and I'll say it till the day I die. Get down. Just get down. 2 yards isn't going to matter. Get down. Slide.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, this is just like a two question, but when it comes to the whole retiring thing, I don't like how people are telling him to retire. I do think it's up to him, and people think that they get to make decisions for other people. And I get it. Tua might be looking more at a football perspective. Um, like I want to. He still wants to be great. He was a quarterback at Alabama. He had all sorts of promise when he came to the NFL. He had a little bit of a rough start, but then now he's been playing great, and he's on a great team with a great coach and great players. He's got it. He just needs to stay healthy. I'm not going to tell him whether he should retire, unretire. That's probably more for his family. Probably have a conversation with him. He can do what he ever decides to do, and I'll respect it. But yeah, I agree. Like you have to. I mean, you don't see players like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers playing so long in the NFL and having such lengthy careers because they were going out there with their head down, trying to hit stick people. You have to play. You can call it, playing like a coward or doing whatever you got to do, but I mean, it's called playing for longevity. If you're gonna take hits every play, you're not gonna play for very long. So if he needs to change his playing style to more of a conservative type, for him to play longer and for him to be healthier, then please do it. because we all want to watch Tua play, and we all want to see him be successful, and most importantly, for him to be healthy. So, but if he does decide to retire, that's completely on him, and I think everyone would respect and respect that decision for him. So, I mean, really, it's whatever he wants to do. But if he wants to play football, then I'll absolutely watch him play football. I just hope he plays more conservatively.
The one thing I would respect the Dolphins for saying, the Dolphins said, this is Tua's timetable. We have no understanding of what his timetable is. Whatever Tua wants to do. When he comes back, he comes back. If he doesn't want to come back, he doesn't want to come back. That's fine. I respect that. That's a very respectable position to be in.
Yep.
So, moving on let's get this done. Chiefs, Isaiah Pacheco suffered a fracture in his fibula in the game against the Cincinnati Bengals. He's had surgery. Now, if you listen to Andy Reid, he's not 100% certain of when Pacheco could come back. He said, could be this year, could be next year. That doesn't tell us anything. So, in doing that, the Chiefs have decided that they're going to sign Kareem Hunt. So, Lucas, why don't you take this one? Why don't you go first, as I'm going to go clear my nose again.
Okay. Uh, yeah. I mean, it's a good move, I guess, for the Chiefs getting Kareem Hunt. I mean, I just remember Kareem Hunt in his prime, I would say, playing for the Chiefs and how they were almost unbeatable that year. So to get him back on their team is great. Obviously, you don't want to lose a guy like Pacheco. Great football player, great running back. Um, someone that you'd want to have on your team and as your RB1. But Kareem Hunt is not a bad number two. I would be interested to see how I want to say his first name Carson Steele plays.
Yes.
I believe he's their fullback, and he's been getting reps. He's been getting big time. Even though he had a fumble in the Bengals game, they were still giving him the rock. They seem to trust him, and they seem to love him as a player. So I would assume that
It's
Carson
one of
Steele will
those,
probably get reps as well.
like when Kareem Hunt was available because it's week 2. So that's kind of how that happens. It is what it is. So, I mean, you lose a guy like Pacheco, that's a big issue too. The things he
Yeah.
can do. He runs in between the tackles, he's got good speed, he's got good power, he can catch the ball. Now all of a sudden, you don't have that guy anymore. You gotta make do with what you got. And that's Kareem Hunt, so let's see what happens. Plus, you know him. So, okay. Alright, moving on into. We're going to try to do this a little rapid fire here. A.J. Brown, expecting to miss a few weeks with a hamstring issue. They really could have used him against Atlanta. Just got a notification that Justin Herbert has a high ankle sprain. Listed as questionable. Will play. That's not a question. They just say questionable. Questionable. Back in the day, you used to say probable. This is what it is. Just say he's good. Let's go. Patriots, Jawan Bentley suffered torn pec. Done for the year. That's unfortunate. Could have used him yesterday, I would think.
Yeah, maybe the score would have been 21-3.
Deebo Samuel to miss several weeks with a calf strain. That's unfortunate because he does so much for this team. You need him. Now, no Christian McCaffrey, no Deebo Samuel. That might just be the injury bug that has hit the San Francisco 49ers at this point.
Yeah, the injury bug that consistently hits them every year, it seems like.
Around the same times.
Yeah, usually. Uh, I hope they come back healthy because I really, really want to see, you know, the healthy 49ers team facing, I'm sure they have prime time well, they definitely do have prime time matchups this year, so I want to see a healthy Niners team facing competition.
Yeah. Next up, Cooper Cup to miss some time with an ankle issue. He wasn't put on IR, so the hope is he'll come back within 4 weeks. But no Cooper Cup, no Puka Nakua. I mean, Matt Stafford, good luck. That's what you're hoping for.
Run the ball, please.
Well, they can't. What are they gonna do? The offensive line is injured to hell.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe their defense will step it up.
I think their whole version of offense needs to be Matthew, just don't die.
Yeah, that's
Pretty much what we
that's
are.
that's this week. First Puka, now
Exactly.
Cooper Cup, Matt Stafford maybe
Yes.
next. Let's not
Well,
wish
we'll
that
see
on
what
him. Hopefully he'll be all right.
he has been. He's been in a cast to deal with the swelling of his ankle, which he had an ankle issue last year. Don't know if it's the same ankle. Don't know anything about it. So let's get into the games. The Patriots and Jets of last night, 24-3 was the score. It was not a fun game to watch. It was brutal. It was like watching. It was. It wasn't soothing at all. It was. We just watched Aaron Rodgers just play, and then anytime he missed a throw, it was like losing his mind. I
Yeah,
didn't know what else to describe this as.
not too much analysis on this game. Just if you're a Patriots fan, just expect more of this.
I didn't expect more. I just didn't know what to expect, and now I realize I was like, I wish I didn't watch this game in the first place. That's kind of been the position I've taken. Let's move on into the Ravens versus the Cowboys. +1 for the Cowboys. They're not even favored at home. This is how bad it was.
Uh, so it's just tough because the Cowboys, you'd want to predict them almost to have a bounce back game, but I can't. There's no way I don't think that the Ravens go 0-3 to start the season. Let me tell you, no one would have predicted that. Um, and I'm not going to predict it either. So I'm going to go Ravens 24, Cowboys 21.
That's very fair, I think. That one of those weird stats that you always find is when a coach comes back after a loss, does the team likely win? And one of those is, for whatever reason, Mike McCarthy. He's just he's 12-2 since losses. That's kind of what he does. So I'm concerned about this defense, but I'm gonna try to speak it into existence that the Cowboys find a way to win. It won't be nice. It'll be kind of one of those weird things that happens. But I have the score 28, 27-24 Cowboys. Just find a way to win.
Okay.
Now we move on to Lions at Cardinals. +3 for the Cardinals. Who do you got, Lucas?
I would definitely take the Cardinals on this one. +3 is surprising. Yeah, I'm Cardinals Lions. That's interesting. I'm definitely going Cardinals. I, I don't know who's making these odds. Um, I would take the Cardinals. I'm gonna say I don't know 28-21. I mean, I think the Cardinals are really good and coming off of a huge dominant win last week. I think they're gonna keep the momentum rolling.
I'm taking the Cardinals too. For this reason. This is the reason I have. Only because this Lions secondary is not great. It's not great. It's really weird. They struggle again, and I think Marvin Harrison Jr. just has another game, and you're like, ah. Here we go. And so I have Cardinals winning. Closer game though, 24-21. Next up, 49ers versus Rams. The Rams are getting plus 7.5.
Yeah, I would probably go the 49ers here. Doesn't to me it doesn't matter if McCaffrey and Debo are out. I think the Rams are more banged up than the Niners. Uh, so I think the Niners are just a better team even if both are healthy. So I'm gonna go 49ers. Uh, 21 Rams 10.
I'm going 49ers too. This is the injury bowl, in my opinion, okay? Everyone's injured. Let's just see what happens. This game just exists, kind of thing. So I got 49ers winning. I'll go 31 to 31-10. And finally, to end this, Chiefs at Falcons. First of all, Falcons getting plus 3.5. Falcons coming off a win against the Eagles, where Kirk Cousins actually looked like a good quarterback in the final 2 minutes. So, who you got, Luke?
Let me tell you, I would be absolutely. It would be shocking if the Falcons won this game. Not only just because they're facing the Chiefs and all that, but I mean, what a change! They would lose to the Steelers in Week 1, beat the Eagles, and then beat the Chiefs. As a Falcons fan, after watching Week 1, that is not at all what you would expect. So that would be hilarious if it happened. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Chiefs will go 3-0. I think it will be closer than expected. I think the Falcons had a good week last week, and they won a close one. So I'm gonna go. I'll go the Chiefs 28. Maybe the Falcons. No, Chiefs 28, Falcons 22. We'll go 22.
Okay. So I have the Chiefs winning too. But Joe, right, it would be so interesting to watch if the Falcons could beat the Chiefs and the Eagles back-to-back weeks. I mean, like, we all know when you play Pittsburgh, it's one of those weird games. Pittsburgh lulls you to sleep and then somehow makes a completion.
Yeah,
It's pretty much what they do.
that's
Um,
interesting.
I've got the Chiefs winning 28-17, but it might be actually closer than the score. It might be one of those weird games that we just start seeing, like,
Prime Kirk Cousins.
Kyle Pitts do something on offense.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have a feeling when just when you mention the game, like on paper, you'd say Chiefs by a mile, but I have a feeling it's going to be a close game. I might be dead wrong, but I don't know. There's something about last week, man. I think the way Patrick Mahomes threw 2 interceptions and just the way that the Falcons kind of rallied against a team that they were not favored. And Monday Night Lights, was that what I mean? Kirk Cousins winning on Monday Night Football. What kind of alternate dimension are we living in? So I
I
think
honestly was like, ult, what kind of ultimate dimension are we living in with Kirk Cousins beating the Eagles? I don't think he did that in Minnesota. I didn't look at the stats, but I guarantee he might have only won one game when he was with Minnesota against the Eagles.
I don't know, take Kirk Cousins out of
I,
the situation. Just the Falcons beating the Eagles is hilarious.
all I'm saying is like they did. Kirk Cousins plays the Eagles every year on Monday Night Football, and this was the first time he won.
Hmm.
So
Maybe a
let's
good
just,
omen.
I guess that's a good retirement chip that you go. You say, I beat the Eagles finally. It just happened on a Monday night. It just happened when I was in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Let us know in the comment section who you have winning for week 3 in the NFL. So, for Jacob and Lucas and the What to Play podcast, we are out and see you next week for week number 4.